Today, I'm joined by Dr. Jenny Kohr, a breast radiologist. We have been coaching together for about 2 years now, and when we recorded this episode, Jenny was in the middle of a job transition. She had just finished a job she held for almost 14 years. She very intentionally ended it well, and she was just a few days away from starting a new one. In between her jobs, she gave herself 9 weeks off. I invited her on the podcast because of a conversation we had a few weeks earlier about how she was spending her time and the idea of pacing herself well. She didn't travel the world or try to do all the things she never had a chance to do. She noticed the pull to fill the space, recognized it as recreating busy, and she chose differently. Today, she's going to share her journey about pacing herself well, how she stayed out of a sense of urgency, and what it was like to finally spend a long stretch of time outside of fight or flight and discover what her own brain was actually like. She shares about singing lessons, advice that if you feel yourself straining, you should try something different. We talk about writing your story to explain yourself to yourself rather than anyone else, and about a question that reframed her entire 9 weeks off. What if what she had spent her time off doing was exactly what she needed? Today's conversation is for anyone who's ending something, beginning something, or living in the space between the two. It's for anyone who suspects that the pace they are keeping is not actually serving them. We hope you enjoy the episode. Thanks for joining us today at the Healing Medicine Podcast. Who are you listening to? I am Dr. Jessie Mahoney, and my co-host is Dr. Ni-Cheng Liang. We are 2 board-certified physicians who bring decades of experience to the conversation about wellness. If you crave more ease and aspire to rediscover your love for medicine and life, one mindful step at a time, you are in the right place. We hope you'll love today's episode, and if so, please share it. A reminder that nothing in our podcast is medical advice. So today I have a special guest joining me who is Dr. Jenny Kohr, and she is a breast radiologist. And Jenny and I have known each other for about 2 years now. We've been coaching together. And Jenny is at this moment in the midst of a transition. She is between jobs, having finished a job and ended it well, and next week starting her new job. And I invited her to come on the podcast because I was so inspired by a conversation a couple of weeks ago where we were talking about her transition and this idea of pacing yourself well. And what if you were spending your time off exactly how you were supposed to? And there were so many pearls of wisdom in this and in many of the things she's explored in her time off between jobs that we thought it would be super fun to have a conversation. So, Jenny, thank you so much for joining me. I super appreciate it.
Happy to be here.
And we'll dive right in. Do you want to just introduce yourself, tell anything else about you that I didn't share, and tell a little bit about where you are right now as we're to sort of set the stage for the conversation?
Okay. Well, so like you said, I wrapped up a job that I had for almost 14 years. My last official day was June 1st, so that was about 8 weeks ago. And I would say it was a really long time coming. But it took me a long time to get there, which actually kind of leads right into our pacing topic. But I finally decided that I really needed a change, that I was feeling very stagnant in my job. And what made it a difficult decision was I just really enjoyed and liked the people I worked with, which made it a very difficult decision to leave. But ultimately, I made that decision realizing I really, really was kind of in desperate need of a change and a reset.
Ready for something new,
Ready
right?
for something new. So ready for something new. So at some point along the lines, I realized this was also a great opportunity to take a pause, to take some time between jobs. My new employer, throughout the whole interview process and the decision to take that job, they were just so fantastic and patient and calm and accepting of me really needing to take my time. I think it took basically a year between when they first reached out to me and when it's actually going to be over a year by the time I start the job. And I think that actually really helped me feel very comfortable in deciding to take an extended amount of time. I kind of settled on 2 months, really just based on intuition. It wasn't some
I love it.
deliberation.
Yeah.
It just was like, that feels right. That just feels right. More than that, I think I would start to just get antsy and want to get started. Less than that didn't feel like enough time. And I think going back to the kind of decision to leave the job, that time frame, I was also noticing this just desire for space in my life, and just kept coming up. And I honestly, it kept coming up and I didn't really know what it meant, but I knew that it was something I really needed. So I think, with the idea, the space was kind of space in my head, space in my life, space in time, all of just space in kind of every sense of the word. So I basically ended up with 9 weeks off. Was a great
Which, by
opportunity.
the way, to the rest of the world is not that many weeks off. To a physician, it's like an eternity, right? But
and I feel I now with less than a week left, I feel good about it. Like I feel like that was a good amount of time. But yeah, in the grand scheme of things, it's not that much. But I feel like
so. Tell us a little bit about how you have approached it. I think you did a lot of work before the time off to set yourself up for success. And unlike, I think, many people in the world, you didn't travel the world or do all the things you've never had a chance to do, which I think that we often have that intense pressure. Well, I have this one opportunity, first time in 14 years, I'm going to go do all the things. And yet you successfully did not do all the things, but did the things that you felt like you really needed to do. And that, to me, is very impressive.
Yeah, I think what I really focused on is I would just say in general, slowing down has really helped me listen to my intuition.
Yeah.
Some people might call it like the wise self,
Yeah.
but I call it intuition. So I really just focused on what is my intuition telling me about what I need. And it was pretty clear. Actually, when I thought about traveling, I felt sick. So I was like, well, I guess I shouldn't do that. And there was a lot of desire to fill up my schedule, though. I think one of the terms you use is recreating busy.
Yes.
I found all these classes I wanted to take. I wanted to do so many different things, but I really tried to focus on, okay, I'm going to pick one meditation class that actually just fit with this. I picked it in some ways because it fit with my time off so perfectly. So I tried to really focus on being very selective about what I added to my schedule, and then just left a lot of space in my schedule. And if I felt like things were starting to get a little full, like again, that intuition of like my schedule was getting a little full, I backed off. So that was, I think the other thing the other way I approached it was, okay, here's what I know is super helpful for me. I know that exercise and getting in my body is incredibly helpful. So I'm going to have an exercise plan. And that was great. The class I took, I think I already said, was a meditation class, and that was incredibly helpful to have that structure for meditation. And then I actually had started a creative writing class a month before I left my job, and finished that for the first part of the time off. And that felt like a really good place to start, a good amount of things to be doing, and kind of the right things to be doing. Um, I think the other, probably more important approach I took is I started most days, for years and years, my favorite time of the day is like the morning in the summer with the morning air and the morning light. And I just would start my day by making a hot cup of coffee and sitting outside and just drinking my coffee. And it was kind of different every day. Sometimes I would meditate, sometimes I would online shop and not maybe do the best things with my time, but I feel like starting that day of just starting the day, sitting outside, not rushing into things was such a good start. And then kind of seeing what I felt like doing next. I had some ideas about what I might want to do that day, and just start with, I feel like doing my exercise now, or I feel like doing some creative writing, or I actually decided at some point to take a self-paced organization course. It's like task management stuff. And again, that was sort of a good way of like listening to my intuition, because I'm like, this feels like crazy that I'm doing this. And I'm like, no, I really just feel like I feel like this will be helpful. Um, and it was incredibly helpful because it helped give me structure to think about tasks and also get some perspective on them. And it's like she's a professional or like an executive coach that does this online course. Her whole thing is like, do this at your own pace. And at first there's like 8 modules or something. It's actually a lot of work. It's a large volume of coursework. And of course, at first I was like, well, I'm going to get this done during my time off. Obviously, I think I've gotten through 3 modules, maybe. But I quickly realized, actually, if I slow down and really use the lessons and use what she's teaching me and put it into practice, that was so much better. I was getting so much more out of it, rather than rushing through and trying to make it into something that actually, what am I trying to say? Squeeze it in. And so not actually make it work for me.
And the focus being on being done, if you squeeze it in,
Exactly.
and achieving and ticking the box that you did the course, as opposed to doing 1/3 of the course and getting tons out of that 1/3.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so tell me a little bit, or everyone listening to, a little bit about this pacing idea, because to me, this idea that things take the time they take was the words you said. And like this concept of pacing is very friendly, like slowing down or just being, I think for many of us feels really stressful. And your story of the mornings, by the way, I'm someone who wishes that the morning could last 3 times as long. I'm always like, why can't the whole day be like the morning? But then I think maybe it wouldn't feel as good. But this idea that things take the time they take, and that we can slow down without a pressure or without a judgment. And for me, that word pacing is so kind, because it's just figuring out the right pace so that life feels good in a nourishing, helpful, energizing way, as opposed to a draining way.
Yes, exactly. And I think what you said about this wanting to check a box and get something done. I think the other thing I recognized is, and I think many physicians, and certainly female physicians, have this like just sense of urgency. This just, and I did recognize that. I mean, I'm still recognizing it, that there was this desire to get everything done, to get the organization course done. I think the other thing that I really wanted to get done during my time off was, basically organize my whole house. I knew that that was not going to be possible. So I want, so I started with like, okay, what's driving me the most crazy, and start there. And recognizing that, okay, I have this sense of urgency, which is really about this desire, this kind of impossible desire to get everything taken care of, to get your life just so, and all the things off the list. And this also, we talked about your yoga class for weeding. And I think the analogy of like, you're never going to get everything done. It's never going to happen. So you're just speeding up the treadmill and running faster and faster, and you're going nowhere. You're never going to get anywhere.
Yeah.
And so that was probably where it started. And then when I actually got into it and started doing things more slowly. Yeah, and I agree, like slow, fast isn't maybe the best word. Maybe it's more intentionally, or just without the focus on actually the task rather than completion and moving on to the next. Because I think I was realizing I just need to get through this so I can get on to the next thing. And instead being in it and doing whatever the thing was and allowing it to take the time it takes was actually had incredible benefits. So it was much more enjoyable. I got more out of it. I probably did a better job, even though, again, that's not the point.
Right.
But like, for example, organizing my office, if I could have come in and just like been like, I need to get this done, and like gotten rid of random stuff, and like had the organization system like not really make any sense, but it was done. Instead, I took it in like little chunks and actually was much more intentional about it. Just like with the organization course, I got so much more out of it, and I enjoyed it so much more. And it bothered me a lot less that I'm going into this job, and you know what? I didn't get all my organization projects done, and that's fine. My life isn't ending when my job starts.
Yeah.
I think
And we think that, right? Like you're going to fall off a cliff. And interestingly, you have a very clear perspective that you're just heading into the next phase.
Yeah.
Do you think part of that comes from this pacing, that you spent the time off the way you needed to, and you'll spend this next time period the way you want to?
I think so. Yeah. I mean, I think I've already noticed a little thought of like, I had a thought, something along the lines of like, oh, when I start this job, I'll probably have to work extra to catch up, or, like I kind of was like, oh, I'll just go into this mode, it'll be fine. And then I was like, what is my urgency about settling into this job? Why do I feel this pressure? And actually, I mean, it's kind of interesting. They signed me up for Epic training like yesterday, and I was like reading through the requirements. It was like, you need a computer with online, you need to be on the Wi-Fi at the hospital. I was like, I think they meant for me to do this once I start my job.
Yeah.
So instead of, I think, maybe old me would have just been like, okay, I'll just do it. It'll be fine. I'll figure it out.
I'll go in.
I'll go in. Like, I don't even have a badge. Like, how am I going to get in?
Yeah.
Whereas now I'm like, I just wrote back and said, I think this needs to be rescheduled. And even now they're asking me to do some things, and I'm like, what do I actually need to do before I start? What can I do when I start? So
honestly, should we actually be expected to do anything before we start? Isn't that an interesting thought, that all these things have to be done before you start?
Yes. So starting off on the right foot even, and just saying, what do I mean, I understand, obviously I have to get credentialed. Like that makes sense.
Fair.
I have to be able to do the clinical work, because that can take a while. But I think just noticing that default pattern of, oh, I'm going to need to jump in and do extra, work harder, all of these things so I can get up to speed, all of these kind of approaches where I'm like, you know what? I don't need to do that. And
seeing in you a very clear sense of like peace with this. There's no angst about like, I don't need to do it, but what if you're just like, yeah, I don't need to do that. It'll all work out in the end.
yeah. And if I'm missing, if I'm missing something, somebody will tell me. And I think
What's allowing you to think that, this idea that if you're missing something, they'll let you know and it'll all work out fine in the end?
I think it is a letting go of perfectionism in some ways. I mean, some of this sense of urgency in doing is a form of perfectionism. And I think the other thing is, I think what really sold me on this is realizing how much, well, it's much more pleasant to work at a more reasonable pace, but I do a better job. I mean, I do a better job. I enjoy it more. It's not exhausting. Like there's just so many clear benefits.
And before all this work, you were wanting to do a better job, but working harder and harder and harder to do a better job. And from that place that so many of us come from, of like the hypervigilance and let me double check and triple check and stay late and do all these things. And now you're recognizing that when you pace yourself, you do a better job. And when you're more relaxed, you do a better job.
Yes.
So how do you get around other people who are still stressed, that like doing things faster and better and traveling all over and optimizing your vacation? I find that hard, where people ask you the questions and they expect you to be doing something kind of, because that's whether it's our cultural expectation or our medicine expectation. It doesn't come from a place of meanness, but it sort of comes from just the way things are in our culture. But how do you handle that without getting anxious?
Let's see. I mean, it's interesting. I went to meet some friends for dinner that I hadn't seen in a while. And one person there was very much like, what did you do with your time off? And, all of this stuff. And I said, because one of the things I feel really good about is this exercise program I did. And actually, I think exercise is another great analogy. Like you cannot cram in exercise. You have to do bit by bit every day.
Yes. You have to pace it.
And you're never done. Like you can't be like, oh, I'm in shape now, I can stop working out. It's the same. So you have to pace it. But she was like, let me see your muscles. And I'm like, so just the like idea that like I needed to prove that I had been working. Like,
worthwhile. This exercise program was worthwhile.
Because I have a bicep, which is actually a fairly useless muscle to work on. But as a side note. So I don't think that, I kind of don't, I would say that it doesn't really stress me out. I'm just like, wow, that's so interesting that there is this,
I love that. How interesting that they think
interesting, that I can notice like that.
Mm-hmm.
Did you travel the world? All that kind of stuff. I'm like, and I just like, depending upon how honest I want to be, I usually don't tell people the thought of travel made me physically ill.
Right.
Fair. But I just, I try to answer fairly honestly, but it actually doesn't stress me out. But I never feel like, I also don't feel like I have a very satisfying answer. But there's also part of me that's like, why do I need to in this type of conversation, do I really need to explain myself?
I love that. We think we have to explain, and they have to agree with us, and they have to understand and support our decision. So detaching from that is brilliant.
Yeah.
I also would offer that, like, when we model living into a life that feels good and actually enjoying it, and I work hard to do that. And I do want to point out, it's work. It's not like our brain is just okay with it. But to say like, wow, actually people ask me that, where are you going this summer? I'm like, I'm going nowhere because I love it here. Like there's nowhere else I'd rather be. But it's very hard to say that and very hard to live into that. But when we model it, it actually gives other people the chance to do that. Like our society is built on travel the world and do as much as possible. And you're also a traveler. And at times in my life, I've traveled a lot too. It's just not the season for that, right? But I think it's unusual to be satisfied with where you are and happy with how you did it. And you said recently, and I wrote this down, what if the way you spent your time off is exactly what you needed? And I think it feels so stressful to say that. And yet, how cool, because I think you actually believe that.
Yeah, so that thought came to me. And before I get into that, I don't want to forget to say, because this is something I've learned from you, is okay, I'm feeling this way that's kind of hard.
Yeah.
What thoughts would be helpful that I believe? And I think that's what I did in that moment. So I was feeling like, because the other thing I didn't say that I did with my time off is I wrote a first author review article.
Yeah. Okay.
And things were not going particularly well with the article at this time. And I was like, why the heck did I decide? And I didn't, I was sort of voluntold to do it. Why did I end up doing this? And then I thought, actually, there's so many important lessons in me trying to write this article in this way at this time that maybe this is exactly what I needed. Maybe all of the things that were good about this time off, but there were hard things too. Maybe all of that was really important and exactly what I needed to prepare me for the next step. And that felt like I said, that was like, what thought can I have about this that feels true and is helpful? And that was the thought that came to me, and incredibly helpful.
Yeah.
And I believe it. I believe it.
And do you think you could have thought that thought a few years ago?
Oh, absolutely not. No, I don't even know what would have happened a couple of years ago.
I actually love this idea of like, what if the way I spent my weekend was exactly what I needed? Or what if the way I spent the summer was exactly what I needed? Like, it's very rare that we think that thought.
Yeah.
And yet, when you think about it that way, you start to think about how each and every experience helped you grow or helped you become a person that you would like to be. Or even if it was a challenge, I will lean into, I'm taking care of my aging parents. Like, apparently, that's exactly what I needed this summer. I didn't know that. And I can see that that is true when I ask that question. I'm like, oh, well, there was some healing that I needed. And there's clearly some healing that my parents needed, not just physical healing, but I think it's just a really interesting way to frame whatever's going on. Like, even if your job is toxic, like maybe there's something there, like you actually now are at a point where you need to recognize this and stand up for yourself. And so maybe that's needed. I know that yours was not, but I just think it's so interesting to think about it that way. So let's pivot a little bit. We've sort of talked about how to transition well and how you really thought about this pacing idea. And there are two things that you did, one of which I really want to learn from. So one is that you took singing lessons, and you might have started before your time off, but you really leaned into it and took the time to do it. And as I shared with you before we started recording, I really want to take singing lessons, and I just haven't found the right space to do it. And we've talked a lot in your coaching about lessons from singing, because singing is also about breath, and it's about mindfulness, and it's about letting go. It's about so many of the concepts that we work on in coaching, but you're doing them in a somatic way, which reminds me of sort of yoga and all of those things. So do you want to just share some of the lessons from singing and what you've learned?
Yes, and there's so many. So I did start. So first, I'll just say, for years, I just had this. Again, it was sort of like that desire that I had that kept coming up for space. I was like, I just want to sing. I just want to learn to sing. I'm so curious. I mostly had this huge curiosity about it. I had no singing experience in my life. I played the violin a little bit when I was in elementary school. Maybe I knew how to read music. I don't
There's
even know.
hope for me.
Yeah,
There's hope.
I had no, and so I just finally was like, well, for a while I was like, well, that's so silly. Like, why would that's impractical. I don't have time for that. I need to, do all these other things that whatever are more important. And
Always.
finally, yeah, of course. And finally I was like, you know what? I'm I'm going to do it. And then I started Googling and trying to find a voice teacher, and I found all these very uninteresting classic singer, classically trained singing. And it just sounded like just not what I was looking for, or kids teachers, stuff like that. And then finally I found this woman and I saw her website and I was like, this is my teacher. I have found my teacher. She's incredible. She had like pink hair. She said, if you can talk, you can sing. I don't believe in this, like only people with natural talent should be singing, and she was based in Seattle, which is where I am. So I got on the wait list. It took me a year to get in. And then I started singing with her and she does small group classes because she feels like that's the way people learn the best. And I started that in February of this year, so about 6 months ago. And I mean, so the first thing that I learned was that we cannot actually hear our voices accurately, which just felt to me like how it's very hard to see ourselves accurately. So the solution to that
Reminds me of coaching.
yeah,
Right? We cannot hear our voices like the voices in our head accurately.
yeah,
Nor can we hear the sounds accurately.
right.
Wow.
So what you need to do is listen to how it feels in your body and listen to what your body is telling you.
Yes.
And yeah, and well, and it just goes on from there. So
Wow.
the other thing was I realized, number one, I was singing way too low when I was going and doing karaoke or whatever. I was picking these songs that were terrible for me because that's what I thought I was capable of, which is also like fascinating.
Right.
And that I was straining because I was trying to do something that wasn't right for my body or, for me.
Yeah.
So contorting myself, so there's just like the analogies are endless.
How often do we contort ourselves to fit into something or do something that we think we're supposed to do?
Exactly. And what her advice is, if you feel yourself straining, try something different. Try and find another way around it. So, I mean, it's just brilliant. So that
If
was,
you feel yourself straining, try something different.
yeah,
It's a
stop.
little bit like your job, right? Stop.
Yeah. Stop.
And not that there's anything wrong with the job. It's like you're singing in the wrong, what is it? Pitch for you, right?
Yeah.
Because you are not an alto, you're a soprano, right? And yet we thought maybe we were an alto, or I don't know if this is true in singing, but maybe you've changed over time. Like our voices change. I don't know.
I think you can get access to different, but I don't actually know if you can. I think you can get access.
Okay. Yeah. But stop and change if you feel yourself straining.
Don't just allow the strain to be there, which is what I was doing.
Yeah.
But I am very excited to share the most recent lesson, which was literally 2 days ago. So one of the things she talks about is something called unpracticing, where it's to make practicing more fun or just have fun with it. And literally one of the techniques is the F it technique. You just don't worry about what you sound like. You just sing. And, I was suspect of this.
The perfectionist says, that's not going to work for me.
Yeah, I'm like, I'm going to need to keep this locked down. But I had this experience where I was actually doing a plank and a song by Sia. I don't know if you know the singer Sia, but she has an incredible voice. She has a very high range and very, very powerful. And I was doing a plank and I just sang along with her. And I was like, wait, what was that sound that I just made? Just totally not paying any attention and I was like, that sounded pretty good. It felt good.
Yeah.
And then, so I was singing for other people in my class last night. And I really just had this attitude of like, you know what? I'm just going to enjoy it. I'm just going to have fun with it. I'm just going to
Mhm.
really get into the music and not be so precious about, am I getting the pitch exactly right? Am
Mhm.
I getting the timing exactly right? And my teacher was like, you were like better than you normally, like you're better than you normally are. You match pitch better. Your timing was better. Your enthusiasm, like everything was
Yeah.
better when you actually let go a little bit and just let it happen.
And what's the lesson for that in life?
I mean, just the kind of it is kind of a striving or a
Yeah.
grasping
Yeah. Yeah.
actually gets in your way.
Yeah.
And that if you just allow, and I mean, I really just kind of allowed, and I had a fabulous time singing, and I could see while I was singing, I could see the other people in the class like
Yeah.
like they were enjoying it, like everybody had a great
Yeah.
time, like because I was enjoying it. And it was like one of those moments where now I can look back and be like, oh God, that was just absolutely delightful.
Yeah. Wow. And so how do you think that might help you, like as you shift into a new job, which is going to be uncomfortable, right? It's a little bit like we think about how we want to show up. And while I talk about intention, part of it might be just like showing up like you did in that singing class, like
Yeah.
being that's your authentic self,
Yeah.
not like not a curated authentic self, but
Right.
a genuine, free, authentic self. And how amazing does that feel? And what might happen if we did that as physicians?
Yeah. I mean, well, and I should say too, I would also add that the my teacher said that the song I chose for myself, which is a Taylor Swift song, of course,
Of course.
she said it's actually the best song for me that I have chosen. Because every time I go
Mhm.
into lessons, I have a song that I'm working on.
Yeah. Okay.
And she said I did. So I think that's also an interesting piece is I chose something that also suited me really
Mhm.
well.
Mm. Suited you now. And I'm thinking
Suited me.
about your new job. You're choosing it because it suits you well, or it
Yes,
feels
that
like
was
it
the whole
suits you well. I mean, of course, we don't know because you haven't started,
right. But
but
that
it was
was
a thoughtful, intentional choice about what felt good. It's almost like trying on clothes, right? That
yeah,
feels good on your body.
yeah, yep, yeah. And I think actually that's part of why getting back to that article I wrote, there was a lot of
Yeah.
stress about it, but I also realized despite the stress, I was like, gosh, it just feels so wonderful to use my brain this way. And I learned
Mm.
so much. I just really also enjoyed it a lot.
Do you think everything, it sounds like, not everything, but almost everything you did in your time off felt really wonderful? And I'm wondering if part of that is the pacing, part of that is like the permission to enjoy it and be you and choose the things on purpose that felt good to you, not necessarily what the world would choose for time off, but
Mhm.
personal choice and really honoring yourself and maybe starting the day enjoying the morning. Like a part of me says like this was all really well thought out and purposeful.
Mhm. I think one of the other lessons was I have really good intuition. And
Yeah. Yeah.
if I slow down enough or pause enough to listen to it,
Yes.
and it's there, it's been there, and I just haven't listened to it. And when I listen to it, it's kind of amazing. So I think developing that self-trust.
Yeah. And how many of us in medicine, I mean, one, we were taught to turn it off, right? Because
Yeah.
you have to stay up all night and do all the things we're supposed to do. But I think we do have good intuition. Usually going into medicine was part of our good intuition because we do love it. We love learning, we love the science, and most of us actually love the medicine and the taking care of patients, all the other stuff on the outside. But this allowing yourself the time to pause and listen to it, that's where there's no time to pause. And so we've turned it off and then we don't know how to find it again.
Yeah.
I'm curious because you had done before we met a lot of mindfulness, and yet there was some disconnect between the mindfulness and finding your intuition. So what's happened in the last couple of years that got you there? Do you have any thoughts on that? That's a big question that I know I didn't give you any. I didn't know I was going to ask that question.
No, oh, believe me, I've thought about it because I mean, I started meditating like over 20 years ago.
Yeah.
I mean, there's part of me that's like, I think I just needed, I just had to dig real deep. Like I had to just keep going.
Yeah.
And I think that was part of it. Yeah, I mean, I really think that I just had a lot of digging to do. And so I think I still feel like I'm learning so much. I meditated this morning and it was, I felt like I was going to come straight off the meditation seat. Sometimes that's just how it feels, really busy and chaotic in there. But I think I just had a lot of lessons to learn. I also think for me, I think that meditation alone was not enough. I think I needed, I mean, and that's the other thing we could talk about too, is like that I started doing creative writing.
Right.
And how different I've been also journaling forever. And the creative writing, which is still not, it's nonfiction. It's more like memoir writing, I guess.
But it's more structured, a bit like coaching is
very
more structured.
There's a lot of techniques, which is what I learned in the class I took. And it feels like in some ways it's been kind of an unlock.
Yeah.
Because it sort of combines meditation because a lot of some of the
writing is meditative. Yeah.
Yes. And particularly this style, which involves, one of the techniques is actually writing at the pace of what is happening. So if I write a 5 minutes period of time, it takes 5 minutes to read it. So it's actually a very much slowing down and intentional and like noticing, like I wrote the other day about the morning air, like how much I love morning air and weaved it into the story about that morning. And so just that is really, I think it makes the writing feel more embodied and also meditative because it's really about the feeling.
Yeah. Yeah.
All of the feelings, physical, emotional, sensory.
Yeah. And I think what I see often is it's the blend between the mindfulness and then the structure, whether it's the coaching mindset, singing strategies, creative writing strategies, that for many of us, doing just one or the other, we miss a whole piece of it, right? And then I think there are some other pieces in there that are, which maybe you had a bit of before the judgment about it, right? Why isn't it working, or why hasn't it worked, or what's wrong with me? And I always say nobody changes from that place, right? So you need the mindfulness, you need the structure, you need the willingness to stop beating yourself up. And then you need some energy/space to solve the problems. You need energy and space, actually, and noticing and the awareness, right? And so it all weaves together. It can't be just on its own. And what I'm seeing in you after, 20 years of meditating, a couple of years of coaching, lots of other endeavors that you've been just adding in that really are you, like feeding your spirit or your soul, or the things that make you come alive. It's kind of shifted your whole being. Does that feel true?
Yeah. I think the other thing I want to say too is that, and you've talked about this you talk about this in coaching, is like the rules. The rules.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. I'm still recognizing all of the rules I have. And now I think that I have this sort of lightness about them that I find them sort of entertaining. Like, oh, how interesting that I had that rule.
There's another rule.
There's
How interesting.
How funny. But I think I do feel like in some ways it's almost like a rediscovering of myself. I think the other piece here that we haven't directly talked about, but has kind of been there, is like this idea of being creative. And that I think I had just gotten to a point where I just wasn't really exercising that muscle of creativity. And creativity doesn't have to look like you're, taking a painting class and selling your art or something huge. Creativity can be how you organize your office or how you spend your time. It can be all of these things.
The song you choose. For me, it's the yoga class and like coming up with a theme and
Yeah,
putting all that together. So, because I had a story, I wasn't creative.
yeah,
And I've now realized that I am creative. My creativity looks like creating retreats and programs and yoga classes and gardens, and which I didn't think of, I
right,
put in quotes, air quotes here, were creative. And yet, once
right,
I've leaned into that, then I can lean into other things that maybe I thought I wasn't good at, like
right.
singing, right?
Yeah,
Like then we can get back to that one.
yeah. Like I thought I wasn't. It's interesting because I guess that is sort of a rule you had, right? Like a
Yes,
rule
yes,
that we have of like,
yes,
this is what creativity looks like.
yes.
And I'm not that.
Yeah.
And also I think the other thing that's interesting about both the writing and the singing
Yeah.
is to notice that I still want that validation. I still want someone to say like, wow, you have a really amazing voice,
Yep.
or wow, that was a really great thing you wrote.
Yeah.
And
That's
to,
the same thing. We bring our same brain to everything we do, right? So we bring it to medicine, we bring it home, we bring it to singing class, we bring it to yoga class, like we bring it to writing. And when we see it, you're laughing at it, right? Like, and so we can laugh at ourselves and say, oh, look,
yeah,
I also want someone to tell me I'm really good at that.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And have like some kindness towards
Yeah.
that part of you. And also, I think that's what's so interesting to me about art in general. Like, I'm actually, no disrespect to Whitney Houston or Mariah Carey, but I'm actually not that interested in someone who is exceptionally talented and incredibly good. I'm actually more interested in
Yeah. Yeah.
somebody who does something interesting with what they have. Is
Oh, I
much more
love
interesting.
that. Yes. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
And maybe that's because of my own perspective, but I actually find that to be interesting, and I don't think I'm the only one.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing I've been taking writing classes kind of here and there for a while, and another writing class I took, which one lesson really stuck with me, is we can never truly, absolutely understand another person. Like, really, we can't. We can try, we can get close, but we can't really, truly understand anyone else. So don't write your story to explain yourself to someone else. Write your story to explain yourself to you. And so when I
Mhm.
do my writing, I'm like, no one's ever going to see this. I am writing for myself, and that is it. And I try to do that, but still I want to read it for other people and get
Yeah,
feedback for
so
them.
interesting. And the coaching analogy to that would be tell your story to explain yourself to you.
Yes.
Because so many of us tell our life story and our decisions from the lens of what will other people think of me, or they add in all these layers of judgment. But if you were explaining yourself to you, you would never say, I'm a terrible, I should have done that differently. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because innately we don't want to treat ourselves that way. It comes
Yeah.
from outside forces.
Yeah.
I love that. Write yourself to explain yourself to yourself.
Yeah. Don't worry. And
Yeah.
I think that's a good approach to take going into my job, is
Yeah.
that um I can trust myself,
Mhm.
and therefore I can ask the questions I need to know the answer to. I can approach things not from a sense of I need to prove myself or
Mhm.
meet some arbitrary timeline that I've come up with in my mind, or, some other
Yeah.
thing.
Yeah.
Um,
Wow. I'm going to reflect back that you just said I can trust myself to ask questions and just be you. How awesome is that?
yeah.
I was like, my job is done.
Well, and I guess I would say, like that's not to say that, even going into the job and like asking for various things
Yeah.
as before I even start, that's not to say that I don't, feel a little bit like, ooh, should I be asking this? Or, all those things still come up. Like I want to be really clear about that I don't expect that this is going to be easy or something. I'm good, right? Like I'm going to have those feelings are going to come up.
Right.
And I'm going to need to say, okay, this is a meditation thing. Okay, I see those feelings. And sometimes is there some truth? Is there any truth to that? Like, am I being, because of course,
Am I being unreasonable?
am I
Right.
being unreasonable? If I'm not sure, I could ask if I'm
Yeah.
being, there's
Yeah.
ways around it. It's just like with the voice. Like if it doesn't feel right, like, is there another way I can do this? Am I onto something here? But just to pay attention
Yeah.
but on the other hand, not just, do the epic training a week before you start your job,
Right. I
ask
actually love
questions.
this question. We can actually ask, am I being unreasonable? Would it be okay if I do this training afterwards? This doesn't seem to make sense to me. Like, we're so trained not to do that and worry that someone will judge us for not doing it. And yet, very often, it's the exact right question.
Exactly. Questions, I actually think questions, like asking good questions, and you talk about this in coaching, but asking good questions of yourself and other people
Yeah. Yeah.
is an incredibly powerful tool. And I mean, that will probably be a very incredible tool for me when I'm starting this job, because one of the benefits of bringing on somebody new, and I know this from my other job, is they bring in this totally new, fresh perspective.
Yeah. You're like, why do you do it this way? And people are like, I have no idea. We've just always done it that way. I think that's a beautiful thing, even as a former leader in a department, right? When you bring in someone and they question your policy, not because you're doing something wrong, but sometimes they have great ideas. Like, we don't know what other pediatric departments elsewhere are doing. We don't know what they're doing on the other side of the country. And we could absolutely learn from one another. So there's a beauty in asking the questions. And so often we shut ourselves down for fear of judgment when actually it's a great gift.
Right. And I know myself well enough to know that I'm not probably going to come off as a jerk.
Right.
I mean, that's also there's a way to do it and be like, oh, I'm really curious. Can you explain to me
Yes.
why things are done this way, or
Yes.
what's the rationale? Like, I don't, that
Yeah.
no judgment, ask
Yeah.
without judgment.
I love it. So what else, any here, do you want to share that we haven't covered that feels important to share, either about ending well, transitioning well, preparing for your new job, or any wisdom along the way that you wish others had or want to share?
Actually, I think one of the things I realized partway through my time off is that there's lots of ways to say this, but I was basically out of my window of tolerance. I was in fight or flight mode for a very long time, most of the time.
Mhm.
And when I finally spent a lot of time not in that place,
Mhm.
to realize, oh, this is what my brain is like when I'm not basically in sympathetic.
Storm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I can think so much better. I'm more creative in like I was able to go at a slower pace. Like all of
Yeah.
these
Yeah.
things in some ways came from getting out of that place. And now that I'm living mostly out of it, I mean, we have our sympathetic nervous system for a reason, right? Like the goal is not to never be there.
Yeah. Yeah.
But when I can feel myself kind of getting kicked up into it, it's much more obvious. There's things I can try to do. And I think along the other lines with pacing is like, I also may not know exactly what's going to be helpful. Then I just get curious. Well, maybe I'll try this. Like this has worked in the past. Let me try that. I'll give it a couple minutes. I'll give it 15 minutes. I'll go get some exercise. Usually exercise is the right answer, but not always.
Fair.
Maybe I'll try something else. Maybe I'll tidy up for a little bit. That's something that can be really grounding and calming for me. But I would say just the like lived experience of actually spending a lot of time outside of that
You discover a
physiological
whole part of
state.
you. I feel that too, that, for me, living in nature is a thing. Also tidying is funny. I just want to call that out, that I think we think of it as a to-do thing, but
Totally.
cleaning is very mindful and very peaceful and can be very healing for your nervous system. I've discovered picking vegetables, blackberries in particular, is very healing, because you do have to be thoughtful about not poking yourself,
Yeah.
but like it's just this repetitive, and you are paying attention but not really, and enjoying the nature, but that changes your nervous system. And when you
Yeah.
change your nervous system, you have access to parts of you that you, I don't want to say forgot, but they were there, but you weren't connected to them.
Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. And that was tidying up was one of the things I realized I had this silly rule around.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's housework, it's work. So therefore, if I'm feeling tired or off, like I don't want to do work, which is of
Yeah.
course
Yeah.
very
It's
wrong.
funny, hot showers kind of fit in that. Like when we're kids, we have to take a shower, we have to get clean. And now I think of it as such a treat. And
Yes.
yet housework's kind of the same, right? That as adults, we're like, you have to do that. And I'm like, well, it's actually kind of fun. And having a clean kitchen feels amazing. And, obviously not if you're in a rush, and not if you're totally exhausted, and not if certain other things, but we can change the way we describe it, and it can become a beneficial, energizing act rather than a draining to do.
Yes, exactly. And you can do things like, well, I'm just gonna I love to put on relaxing music and maybe sing, or
Yes.
you can make this. And or just the other thing that actually helps me is just like, well, I'm just going to try it for 10 minutes. I'm just going to do it for 10 minutes and see what happens and see how I feel.
Yeah. Love
And then
that.
sometimes you're like, oh, this feels really good. I'm going to do another 20 minutes or whatever. Or like, no, I think I'm ready to do something else.
I think that's another theme that I've heard throughout the podcast, is just permission to try. Like, you tried the singing. If you hated it, you wouldn't do it. You tried the spaciousness. It's sort of like, I'll try it and then I'll decide if I want to do more. Same with the writing.
Yep. Yes. And I think the other thing I would want to add about, for example, the writing. So I took this writing class. It was 6 weeks long and I loved it. I loved the teacher. It was incredible.
Mhm.
So then what do? I look for more. I
Right,
look for
right.
another class to sign up
More
for.
is better. More is better.
More is better. I found the next perfect class I
Yep.
wanted, and it was like 7 Saturdays in the summer, in the
Yeah.
middle of the day. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then I thought, what's my urgency? Am I going to quit my job so I can be an author? Like, what's
Yeah.
the, why don't, and it's, and so I actually wrote to the writing school and said, are you going to offer this class again? And I also said that I loved the other class so much. Is that going to be offered again? And they wrote back and said the summer class, they didn't know if it was going to be offered again. But the other class was going to be offered in the winter. And I'm like, you know what? That's perfect. It'll be great. It'll be dark and
Mhm.
rainy and yucky, and I won't want to do anything outside. And what is this urgency? I think that's striving and like, oh,
Yeah.
this felt good. I want more of
Yeah.
that. But actually, I think in the end, I didn't want to spend my time that way. So just
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
an old me, I would 100% just knee jerk signed up for that class and crammed it in.
Yeah. And I find that when I find something I love, I'm like, oh, I should do more of that. Let me sign up for all the things. And it's like, wait a minute, why? And on the one hand, it's passion and excitement, but then
Yeah.
you've lost the space again.
Yes.
And I found that with some yoga teacher trainings. I found a teacher, I'm like, oh, they do this one and this one and this one. And I was like, actually, I don't need to do one more than one a year, right? Like I can do this one and I can absorb it and practice it and incorporate it into what I do. And then next year I can do another one. But our tendency in medicine is like dive in and more is better. And it's almost a discomfort when we're not doing that. And I think that's the last thing I want to touch on here, because this idea of like, oh, I'm enjoying my mornings and I'm doing less and I'm, taking time and relaxing, and it sounds so easy. And yet we both know it is so not easy, so worth it, but not easy. Do you want to just reflect
Yeah.
on that?
Yeah, I think that's a great point because I wouldn't look back on this time and say it was easy.
Mhm.
Um, but and I think the expectation that it is easy is also problematic,
Yes.
because it isn't. But it does feel like I guess I would say that I feel like I've been living much more intentionally, and that does take a lot of effort.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it's so worth it because in the end, the payoff is much better than the alternative of just getting
Yeah.
in the urgency trap and the striving trap and all of that. But
Yes.
it's
I'm thinking you
kind of
used the word effort. And I was like, yeah, well, it does take effort. And then I thought, yeah, but you and I probably don't want to use that word, right? Because it takes so much effort. And so I was like, well, it takes care or it takes attention or it takes
attention. I like attention.
attention. Well, because care is the first word. And I was like, maybe that's not the right one. But I think exploring that, and I'm not quite sure what the word is, but I would have also said it takes a lot of work or effort and I'm like, that's just going back into the like hard,
Right.
the story you tell. And so I think for me, it takes care or attention are the two that came to mind. It takes intention, which you mentioned. But thinking about that tone and energy you want to bring to it, um, could be a really valuable exercise for you
Yeah,
and
I like
me and anybody else listening.
yes, I like attention. I guess, or the effort, I guess I think more of like the effort I put into exercise, which to me is like
Mm.
incredibly rewarding. Like it's so worth
Yes,
it.
yes, yes.
It's like a satisfying effort, maybe. But I
Oh, I
agree,
love
effort
that.
is
Yeah, no, and actually, that is also a beautiful reminder that a certain word can be like energetically draining, which to me I'm like effort. Yeah, it is effort, but my energy drops. But when
yeah,
you said that, like the effort of doing something that's very satisfying, meaningful, fulfilling, we do, of course, get a lot out of doing. And I don't want to use the word hard things, but things where we really have to put our all into it. We get that incredible satisfaction of, climbing a mountain. When you get to the top, it was hard to get there, and that's effort.
yes.
But again, it's like worthwhile effort or meaningful effort. And
Yeah.
so a word for one person might mean something different than another person.
Yes, like I really don't like I recoil at the like we can do hard things kind of
Yes.
thing.
Yeah.
I'm just like, ooh, that's not for
Yes.
me.
Yes.
I mean, it was for me for so long and
Right.
it's
Right. Right.
probably
No
not.
longer for you.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, I like it's almost like right effort, intention.
Yeah.
I like
Yeah.
attention also because I feel like attention is
Yeah. That one really resonates. It's very peaceful and
yeah,
very on point.
yeah,
Well, this has been so much fun. I think there's so many good, helpful, interesting, intriguing learnings and ideas, and sort of a reminder that, all the ideas that we talk about on the podcast and in coaching, like we all have our different flavor of them and the thing that is going to be right for you. And for some people, singing will be amazing. For some people, writing will be amazing. For some people, it'll be climbing a mountain, or for some people, it's the permission to travel. And so again, it's this non-judgment about it. But as you said, the intuition and the authenticity about what is what you need / want to become your highest, wisest, happiest, most engaged, fulfilled self. So any final words of wisdom that we didn't touch on that you want to share? And you don't have to, and I'm going to give you a minute to think about it and just say that I hope that in listening to this one, that people will just start to think about how they end well, transition well, whether they're in their aligned space, and what is it that really feeds and nourishes them. And also, I'll just add a nudge that Jenny has been coaching, I'm going to say for 2 years, but you pretty much do one-on-one and group coaching as sort of a blend. And it's the time of year to sign up for group coaching. So as people are listening, just to sort of know, I think for you, it's your, I'm going to call it preventive care and or ongoing growth. And that doing it again and again, I don't think has been boring for you. You've done a couple different groups, and I just want to encourage people who are listening that if you're wondering, like, well, how did she get there? Or why is she thinking this way? You had done mindfulness for 20 years. You've also done a lot of personal work, and you've done writing classes and singing classes, and you do yoga and you do all of these things. And there's something in that for you that has sort of been the grease that's put it all together that got you to where you are, along with all those other things. I don't think any one thing in isolation is, of course, the answer, but you might want to reflect on that or anything else that we didn't talk about.
I think I'll start with the coaching.
Yeah.
Is that I feel like my, these patterns of everything we've been talking about, the sense of urgency, the perfectionism, the kind of wanting to have everything figured out is strong. And I feel like the coaching, along with other things that I'm doing, really is to keep me kind of along the right path. That especially when I'm working, it's just, but even when I wasn't working, it's really helpful to have those kind of countermeasures, because that is so ingrained in me. And to not have it, but not, I'm fine with that. I don't need it to be solved. I guess that's when, and that's,
well, it's a little bit like the weeding we were talking about. The weeding is never done. And the sort of, I might call it a tune-up or a freshen up, or just sort of, for me, it's allowing a continuing evolution, and allowing me to continue to grow and enjoy things and be the best version of myself, whatever that is, along the way.
Yeah, and I guess I would also add that, I also think those things, in moderation, or when used in a way that makes sense, are fantastic qualities. Like, I don't think, my ability to put whatever's going on aside and do what needs to be done, like, is an incredible skill. You just can't use it and have it on all of the time. It has to be balanced.
I always say to be discerning about it.
Yes.
I did an interview and someone really wanted to call them toxic traits. And I want to point out they're not toxic traits. They're actually very helpful traits, our persistence and our perseverance and our commitment. And, sometimes we do want to make decisions from fear, but not all decisions and not always.
Right.
And I think that even our catastrophizing or focusing on the negative, I would like that someone to do that in the OR and the ER and in labor and delivery, but not all day, every day. Like as humans, we can't sustain that. So it is being discerning about when they're helpful and when they're not helpful. And you mentioned somewhere along the way today where they're getting in your way.
Yeah.
And being aware of that.
Exactly. Like I would say a sense of urgency. Sometimes something needs to be done.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And, but a lot of times not. So it's kind of, not seeing those traits. I agree there. I'm grateful for them. I mean, they really got me. They're part of, ironically, I think, some of that work ethic, which can veer into leading me to burnout, also is the same work ethic that got me to sign up for the singing classes and, all of these other things, or make sure I'm on top of it for getting into the small group coaching and knowing that that's helpful. It's sort of, it is that discernment of using the different skills and strengths that we have and recognizing when they've tipped into not being helpful.
And that's the paying attention on purpose.
Yes.
Which is the whole point of mindfulness, right?
Yes, exactly.
Beautiful. Anything else you wanted to share as we wrap up?
I think the one thing that's just like popping into my head that I keep not saying is, like, one thing that's been incredibly helpful for me along the way is just like reminding myself, I don't have to have it all figured out right now.
Yes.
I don't have to have it all figured out. And in fact, if I did, how boring.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Boring.
Yeah, let's end on that. We don't have to have it all figured out right now. And if we did, how boring.
Yes.
Brilliant. I just love that. Thank you so much for joining me and having this chat. I know it's going to be helpful to many people today and lots of different times in their life. So I am really grateful for your vulnerability and willingness to chat and share your learnings and wisdom.
Of course, it was so much fun, and it was very helpful to me also.
Yes. Oh, yeah. I also want to add that oftentimes people agree to come on the podcast because I ask them, and then they do the reflections and they're like, wow, that was like a whole bunch of extra coaching, because the process of doing it and explaining it really just shifts your brain in a different way. So I think that that's true. And I have actually been interviewed on podcasts as well, and I always end up getting things out of it for me. So I think sometimes we think as like we listen to podcasts, there's a whole other piece of the podcast work that's happening that we're not even recognizing along the way. So yes, absolutely. I'm delighted and grateful that you took the time, and we are both grateful that whoever's listening took the time to listen to us. Otherwise, there's no point in recording. And so I will be back with another episode next week.
Thanks for listening. If our message resonates, we'd love to connect further. Join us for coaching, mindfulness experiences, workshops, and retreats. Invite us to speak at your institution or conference. When you work with us, you don't just consume information, you create real change. Find me, Chang Liang, at Awakened Breath, and Jessie Mahoney at Pause and Presence.
Welcome to today's mindful moment. A moment to take a pause with me. A purposeful pause, a moment of transition in your day. Taking a moment to find your feet on the floor, your seat on your seat, and reconnect to your breath. Taking it in through your nose and out through your mouth slowly. Noticing the pacing of your breath here in this moment. And compare it to the pacing of the rest of your day and the rest of your life. Not judging your pacing, just noticing it. Noticing the pacing of a regular weekday, a weekend day, your evenings at home. Noticing whether you feel rushed or calm or peaceful or steady or in flow. Asking yourself, what if the way you have been spending the time, your time, is it what you need? What is the difference between the pacing you are living in and the pacing you would like? How might you live closer to a pacing that feels good to you? Acknowledging that it might not feel good to you at the beginning. Your rushed, urgent pacing might feel comfortably uncomfortable. The rushing to pause, rushing again, pause, rushing to get to yoga, and then the relaxing yoga, and then rushing to get home and rushing to get back. So taking a moment to notice your pacing. If you were to choose your life pacing, what might it be like? And what might you learn? Closing eyes if they're not closed, bringing a hand to heart, and sitting for a moment in silence with this idea of pacing. Opening eyes slowly at a relaxed pace, noticing how you feel. I wish you all a week ahead with a lovely, resonant, aligned pacing. Namaste.